Hello out there, movie buffs. My name is Steve, aka NJMovieFreak, and today is podcast number 3. I'm sitting here with two special guests. We got Coma and Yasmin Yarosh. Say hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit first about Yasmin and how she got into musical theater, right?
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you were involved in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes, I was.
All right.
Still
Can
am.
you really? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, about 10 years ago, I was introduced to the Rocky Horror Show. I was introduced to it by my mom, actually. There were auditions coming up, and she told me I should go for it. She actually saw it live in London. She was telling me that it was very interactive, that they had all props and everything, and I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I auditioned for the show. I got casted as a Transylvanian. It was very weird, and I was extremely confused, even until the last performance. Then afterwards, I got invited to see the show live at a midnight showing, which I didn't even know existed at the time.
What's a Transylvanian?
A Transylvanian is a partygoer who... They aren't just an ensemble, but they have a lot of liberty in the show, I would say. They get to have a lot of fun. They get to watch the whole show unfold. They watch the characters transform, which I think is really interesting.
So they're not exactly essential players to the movie, but within the movie itself, they're like the audience.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
They
interesting.
kind of introduce the audience. They bring the audience into the show. They bring out the audience participation. For instance, in my production, we had all the props and such, how people would throw confetti or rice or cards. For instance, we were displaying that to give the audience the perspective of them going to a midnight showing in a normal theater. In 2016, I ended up auditioning for a New Jersey cast, shadow cast, and I was part of that for some time. It was really fun. I got to experiment with a lot of different types of characters.
For the folks listening out there, can you describe what a shadow cast is?
Well, a shadow cast is a performance similar to musical theater, except there is no words being said by the performers necessarily. The movie is playing behind us, so we're essentially shadowing the characters that are behind us. We wear the costumes, we do all the interactions, and also we have, I guess you would consider them hecklers.
Oh, like the callbacks,
The
right?
callbacks, yes. You would call them hecklers, I suppose. But it's all part of the show, and it's really fun.
How long have you been doing this for?
4 years now,
Okay.
I would say. Yeah.
And you still do it to this day?
Yes, I do.
What was the last one you did?
The last one I did actually was in front of a green screen, which
Okay.
was really fun, with a cast called The Ordinary Kids. That was a really interesting experience. Out of all the performances I've ever done, doing it in front of a green screen was very off. But it was really fun.
You mentioned that you played a lot of different characters in the movie. What was
Yeah.
your favorite character to play?
Rocky Horror.
Okay, why is that?
Definitely. He's just kind of there. He doesn't know what's going on. His last lines, he's just saying he's only a few hours old. He's just trying to figure out what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. And I love that.
Okay. Just backtracking a little bit here. The first play we actually did together was in 2014, which
Yeah.
was Agatha Christie's A Murder is Announced, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know Yaz at the time, but I knew Ricky Franco because we used to work together at Barnes & Noble, and he invited me to audition for the part of Inspector Craddock. Got the part. At first he told me it was only a couple pages, a couple lines, because I saw exactly how many pages he was talking about. It was like 30 to 40 pages. I'm like, I'm in freaking 75% of the show, Ricky. He told me it was only a few pages. He's like, yeah. Well, then I know you wouldn't have done it, but you were perfect for the role. I'm like, all right. It was a really good experience, and there's actually a funny story that Yaz and I have, and do you want to tell it?
There was a scene where his character was interrogating all the characters at once. We were all out in the living room, and it came up to my portion, my character's portion, and I was supposed to drop all these clues. And as soon as he was going to interrogate me, he asked me my name, he acknowledged me, and then he just went on to the next person. And I just sat there. Confused.
It was one of the most difficult scenes to memorize because I'm walking around with a notepad, and luckily because of the notepad, I was able to have some of my lines that I couldn't memorize. So when I got to Yasmin, I said, okay, state your name. She states her name. And I lost track, and I went, okay, thank you very much. And she gave me this awkward look on stage.
I remember that. I was sitting on the couch. I'm just like...
And I'm like...
Okay.
In the back of my mind, I'm like, why is she looking at me so funny? So I go to the other characters, I interrogate them, and I get off stage. And I'm like, I forgot to ask her questions about clues. I couldn't believe it. So that was really weird, because after the first night, the director, Ricky, comes up and he goes, Steve! Like, what? He goes... You forgot to ask Julie about the clues. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what that look was for. Okay.
That's not the first time that's happened to me in theater. Being interrogated, actually. Another character just skipped over my lines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember that now. That was weird.
But there was also a part where you and I were in the music room waiting for our cue to go on stage.
Yes.
We were like rehearsing to each other because we were both nervous. But you've been in theater longer than I was.
I still get as nerve-wracked but backstage during shows. It's not until I'm on the stage that I'm just... It wipes, I guess.
Yeah.
But backstage, too much time to myself. I get back into my head. All the nerves hit. No matter what.
Opening night, one of the memories that I always think about, I invited a couple of coworkers when I worked in the office at Barnes & Noble to the show, but only like 2 showed up that night. So the lights go on. It's me and this other guy named Spencer. We're in the scene together, and I have to say something about the house that I'm investigating. Before I can deliver my line, I hear a cackle come from the audience, and it's my supervisor, Yvette. And I'm like, great, just what I need is somebody laughing before I even say my first line. This is going to be a great show. I was able to go on with that without any problems for that scene. So, yay.
I remember Ricky gave me a hard time with the kissing scene that he didn't even tell me about. He's just like, yeah, you're going to play this part. You're going to do great. And then he paired me. That's when he started pairing me up with Chris every show after that show.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just like, oh. He's just like, yeah, you're just going to kiss. And you were there during the rehearsals. You're like, no, you're going to make out. You have to make out. I'm like, why? Why does this need to? He's like, no, you have to make it believable that you love each other, that it's intimate, but it's secretive, but it's intimate. And I'm just like, I remember, I don't think it was you, but everyone, it was kind of like one of those, you can tell me the reference, but everyone was on the door, just everyone's head was just stacked upon heads, just watching, waiting for us to do the kissing scene. And I'm just like, oh boy. And I remember backstage, Chris and he was just like, my boyfriend's out there. I'm like, hey, mine too.
So Joe, how did you meet Yasmin? How do you know each other?
Well, we met at this place that we worked together called Brighton Asylum. But before that, I actually saw her a few months earlier performing as Rocky Horror in a shadowcast. I went with one of my friends from Brighton Asylum who had never seen Rocky, the movie, the musical, the shadowcast at all. And our mutual friend was actually playing Janet at the time. So I said, this is the perfect opportunity. A mutual friend is playing in the shadowcast and you've never seen it. Let's go. So we go. She was the only person that we knew on the cast. Yasmin was playing Rocky Horror. I just remember being really wowed by her performance. But then a couple months later, that same mutual friend that we went to see informed us that Yasmin was going to be joining us as an actor at Brighton Asylum, which is a haunted attraction.
Yeah, I've heard of Brighton Asylum before. Is that like one of those walk-through places where they got like different levels or different floors and people like jump out and grab you?
Yes. Well, we don't grab anymore because of COVID guidelines, but we used to. It used to be optional. You could wear a glow necklace if you wanted more of an immersive experience. Sometimes you could be separated from your group and have like one-on-one time with an actor. That just makes it a little more intense. But yeah, it's a haunted attraction.
Extra for that?
Yeah, you do.
That's what she said.
But she came to join us, and that's how we met each other, and we just kind of hit it off because we had a lot of the same interests.
Now, before we started the podcast, you were mentioning before that you worked at Disney World. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the experience was like?
So the experience of working at Disney at the time that I worked there was, you went to the casting center, you gave them your information, and they said that they would call you back. they tell you that there's an opening in what you're looking for. So they asked you, are you looking for attractions, characters, merchandise, restaurants, hospitality? I was interested in working attractions. So I had to wait for attraction to have an opening. They called me. So I set up an appointment for an appointment. That's how it used to work.
Appointment for an appointment?
You would make an appointment to call someone on this day at that time.
To make the appointment.
To make an appointment to go meet with them.
Okay.
And at this time I lived in Florida. I lived 3 hours south of Orlando.
Wow.
So I made my appointment.
That's quite a haul, though.
Yeah, but it's something I've always wanted to do, even since I was a little kid. I went to Disney quite often living in Florida, but this one time that I went, I think I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and I experienced the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Watching the people perform there was really cool, because at every other attraction at Disney, for the most part, they're just, hi, welcome to this attraction, welcome to that attraction, have a great day, have a magical time. But then at the Tower of Terror, there's this completely different performance. They spoke like they were from the 1930s. Their mannerisms were very elegant.
So the characters were all within the theme of the show, per se.
Right. Now, the story of the Tower of Terror is that the Hollywood Tower Hotel is this haunted hotel. That something happened back in the 1930s where it was struck by lightning, and these guests disappeared into the Twilight Zone. And
now, was this an actual episode, or no? This was a made-up episode just for that attraction.
It was a made-up episode just for the attraction. They did end up making a movie with Steve Guttenberg and Kirsten Dunst, yeah.
Where it was kind of like, he was one of those people that worked for like the tabloid magazines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and he didn't realize that he was actually getting involved in something real, with real ghosts. The movie's pretty cheesy, but it's fun.
But it was filmed there.
It was. Yeah. It was filmed there. It was filmed, as far as I know, most of it was filmed there. The exterior shots, most definitely, and a lot of the shots from the lobby and the boiler room, I think, were filmed there. I ended up working, my first job at Disney was as a tour guide at the Backlot Tour, which is
that's awesome. That's my favorite part of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not there anymore. They tore it down to put in something called Lights, Motors, Action, which was an extreme stunt show.
Lame. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
I agree. After about a year of working at the Backlot Tour, I transferred to the Tower of Terror. And I got to dress like a creepy bellhop from the 30s. I got to be spooky, and that was really what I started getting to really perform. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. You could only go so far with the creepiness, though, because it is still Disney.
Right.
So a lot of times I'd have to hold myself back, because I would really want to be extra scary, but, there's like a little 5-year-old kid, so I had to contain myself. But it was a lot of fun working at Disney.
I'll tell you a quick story. When I was probably a teenager, my father, my mother, and I, we went to the Tower of Terror. We're waiting in line, and it got to the cutoff point where they're like, okay, you got to stop here. Everyone in the building, that's it. This is the cutoff point. So my mother was the last person before they cut us off. And the bellhop said, there's no saving her now. My father goes, dang, it was that easy? Whew, thank you. The guy didn't break character, but he kind of did give us a little chuckle from the side of his face, so I appreciate that.
My first exposure to it was I was boarded onto the elevator with my friend, and I actually got to work with that guy, years later when I worked there, but his name is TJ. If you look him up, he's the most famous bellhop at the Tower of Terror.
Does he always have the same position, or do they rotate?
It's a rotation. Basically, when you work at Disney, you clock into, when I worked there, you clocked into the computer, and they would give you your assignment. So it could be greeter, it could be the elevators, and it'll tell you which elevator to go to.
So it's random every day.
Right. It's a rotation that goes in order, but it just depends on what time it is that you clock in, because you're going to be after the next person.
Gotcha.
But learning, there's phase 1 training and phase 2. Phase 2 is really cool, because then you get to go into the control room, you learn how all that thing works. The whole beast of that entire building is so elaborate. When you really get to see how the whole ride operates.
What's it called? The Omnimover?
AGV, Autonomous Guided Vehicle. I could be messing that up, but I believe that the abbreviation was AGV. If any of my coworkers from Towers listening right now, they're shaking their heads probably.
Like, you should know this.
Yeah, it's been years though, but no, it was so much fun when you learned the whole thing about the elevator shafts. Like they go by Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo Foxtrot.
Mm-hmm.
So Echo and Foxtrot are the two shafts. If you see when the doors open, when you get your picture taken, there's one on the left side, one on the right side. Left is Echo, right is Foxtrot.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Is it an illusion how high you're going? Or are you really that high up in the air when you see the windows open and you see the whole Magic Kingdom?
I don't think it's an illusion. That's very real. The building itself is only 199 feet tall.
But how high are you actually going in the elevator shaft?
You probably go maybe 130, 160.
That's still pretty high.
Yeah, no, it's
But you
high.
don't drop as far as you think you do, right?
You go pretty much all the way down to the bottom, but it needs to slow down, prevent
Gradually.
from crashing. The cool thing about it is that the drops are at random. You start off, if you're in Echo, you can either get on Alpha or Bravo. And if you're on Foxtrot, you either get into Charlie or Delta. And that scene, the second time when the doors open and you go through that dark hallway where the elevator actually comes out?
Yes.
So it actually...
That's the drop zone, right?
So it leaves one shaft. The elevator itself is actually in another elevator.
Huh.
Right? So it only goes up and down. Then, when it gets to that second floor, it leaves that elevator. And that's when it starts going. Now, there's no wheels or anything. It's all computer that goes along this track.
So what is it moving on then?
It's just computer. The computer is like, it has this track that it just follows.
Huh.
And depending on which side you are, you'll either come out and go a little to the right and then straighten out again, or a little to the left, depending on which one you get on.
I gotta say, I am a huge Disney fan, and I've read as much as I could on the Tower of Terror and watched videos on behind the scenes. But what you're telling me right now, I never knew. I'm blown away.
It's cool. It's really cool.
Really cool, man. I'm like a little kid right now. I'm very excited.
When you work there, it's like you get to go through and look at it with the lights on. So you really see all the ins and outs of the entire building.
Well, I don't want to know about that.
I'm not going to spoil it for you.
Okay, thank you. Joe, you're kind of smirking at me. Do you have a story to tell?
I do.
Oh, I got to hear this.
When you're working at Tower of Terror and you've been trained in Phase 2, you have complete control over the ride. And so you're trained essentially, here's the emergency brake if something happens. Here's how you can reset this. Here's how you can stop that. This one day I had my friends come through. When you work there, you can get people in for free. And my friends came through, 3 of my friends, and they let me know as I was getting them in that they had just eaten a batch of weed brownies. So yeah.
Great place to go when you're high.
I agree. So I go to work, and they go on their merry way. And I'm working in the control room. I'm looking at my monitor. And who do I see get onto the elevator? My 3 friends. So I say, okay, now I've got control over the ride that you're getting on.
Oh my gosh. Tell me you messed with them.
I had to. So they get onto the ride. It was just the 3 of them on an elevator that holds 21 people. Little known fact, if you don't live in Florida, is that if you go during January, especially the 3rd week of January, the parks are very slow. So it's a good chance that you'll get your own boat, your own ride, your own elevator, or you'll be paired with, not a lot of people. The lines are almost nothing. So they get an elevator to themselves. I'm like, all right, it's just them. I don't need to worry about ruining anyone else's experience. It's on. So the ride begins and they go up to the very first scene where you see the ghosts at the end of the hall. And then it goes to the next scene, which is the 5th dimension. They come out of the first elevator shaft. They start moving forward. And I'm just letting them go. And I see, as they come into the second elevator shaft, which is the one that drops you and throws you up and down and up and down, I see they're all got these grins and the look of anticipation. They're all getting ready, and I'm just like, you guys are just bonkers stoned right now. So I pull up the brake for the shaft. It doesn't interfere with anything else of the ride. All it does is just doesn't let the drop sequence happen.
So they're just sitting there?
Right. Now, these guys have been on this ride before, so they know that the drop sequence is supposed to start within, 2-3 seconds after being inside of the shaft. Now it's been about 10 or 15 seconds. And they're just sitting there in pitch black darkness and silence. And there's a PA microphone that you can address the people in case of an emergency. So I get close to the PA and I say, and I whisper their names. And they're all looking around and they're smacking their knees. And then I just hit the brakes and it just, boom, they go flying up and they go flying down. And the disorientment that they were in when the ride was over I met them at the unload station, and I had my arms crossed, and I was like just giving them a smile and just nodding my head. I said, "How'd you like it?" And they were just they were on another level than I was, obviously.
I remember as a kid there being a lap bar as the restraint. Now, from my understanding, it's only seatbelts now, right?
Yeah.
Yasmin, did you mention before that you slipped out when you were younger?
Yeah. My very first time at Disney, that was my absolute favorite ride next to the Rock and Roller Coaster. And I'm personally a thrill person, as you know, from East Coast Thrills. I was with my brother and...
East Coast Thrills merchandise.
But this was back 2000 and maybe, was it like 9 or 10, back when they had the lap bar. It was my brother and I think one older gentleman. And my brother and I, we were both tiny, though I was the tiniest of the group. I'm a thrill seeker, so I don't usually hold on to rides. And I've been on drop rides before, but nothing like this ride at the time. I remember during the drop I was telling myself, you know what, I'm not going to hold on. It's going to be fine. I like thrill. It's going to be fun. And then as soon as the drop goes, I feel my hips lifting out, not just like my legs, but my legs started straightening out as the drop started going. And that was the one time I think I grabbed onto my brother because I didn't know where I was going to go because I didn't trust that bar. Mainly the person next to me. That was really scary. I saw my life flash as I was looking at a beautiful Disney. I'm just like, this is where I'm going to die. This is going to be great. I love it. It's great.
Was your mother with you?
Not on the ride.
Darn.
No, it was just my brother and I. I don't think I told her that. I think that happened.
Well, now she probably knows.
Oh, good. I think I also told her I got stuck on Splash Mountain. That traumatized me.
Where'd you get stuck in the ride?
In the beehive.
Oh, okay.
I did not like that, and I had mascophobia at the time.
Oh, okay.
And as John and I were both stuck in there, he started getting to feel unsettled for a bit, and I just looked at him and I was like, well, now you understand what mascophobia is, except I have it 24/7 at Disney World. It's great. This is great.
It's ramped up to 11 at that point.
Honestly.
So going away from that a little bit, today is December 11th. We're exactly 14 days away from Christmas. Are you guys excited?
I am.
Sure.
Wow.
Thanks for the enthusiasm,
I'm
Joe.
excited for Santa's sleigh.
Yes.
Oh gosh, we'll get to that one later. But first movie I got to talk about, of course, is a classic that I believe it's TBS that has it every year, or TNT or TBS puts it out every year, and it's Christmas Story. You shoot your eye out, kids. Classic. Little fun fact: the screenplay was actually adapted from the radio personality and author Gene Shepard's novel "In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash." Did you know that he also has 2 roles in the film?
Does he really?
He stars as the man in Gimbals, telling Ralphie that, hey, the line ends here, begins there. And he's also the narrator from the movie, too.
Oh.
There's a lot of different things about that movie that, we can relate to. And Ralphie is after this Red Ryder BB gun. So he hears the advertisement, he sends in for the pin to get the decoder, and it turns out it's just a crummy commercial for Ovaltine.
Aww.
And a lot of us have fallen for those gags through the media just to get kids to buy something. Do you watch the 24-hour marathon every year, guys?
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't know that? Yeah,
You didn't know that?
Every year they start at Christmas Eve, I believe at 8 p.m.
And they leave it on.
And they leave it on until 8 p.m. the next day. They do 24 hours with commercials, of course. Yeah. Joe, you're kind of giving me this this kind of dismissive look. Did you not enjoy A Christmas Story?
Not particularly. I actually haven't even seen the whole movie.
What do you remember from it, if anything?
Obviously, I remember you're going to shoot your eye out.
Okay.
I remember the tongue in the pole scene.
Okay.
You know, like the scenes that are kind of like drilled into you. You know what I mean? And it just kind of sticks with you. But my experience of seeing it was very much like, it just kind of felt forced. It was like, well, it's the holiday season. We have to watch this. We have to watch that in one of the Christmas movie. And A Christmas Story is one of those movies that just kind of fall into it. I went into it thinking it was going to be funny, or it was going to have some kind of effect. It lacked that effect. I didn't absorb it the way that a lot of people do. And maybe 2 or 3 times that it was shown to me, I often ended up either dozing off or just getting distracted, and it lost my attention. I get the reason that it's so dear to so many people, and it is very nostalgic for a lot of people because people grew up with it, and it's just one of those things that it passes down every year that people enjoy watching. For me, it's just one of those things that I try to avoid. I guess my first exposure to it felt kind of forced, and I kind of carried that with me for a while.
Now, I know some listeners are probably going to be shooting daggers at Joe, but I'm actually going to defend this point. Looking at it from an outside point of view, I can see it being not as interesting as most of the diehard fans are. I mean, yes, it is shown every year as a 24-hour marathon. Yes, it is one of the most quoted Christmas movies of all time, even though it's just over 30 years old. And yes, it's not really as funny as you think it is because it's kind of a slow movie. And if you're not into that kind of stuff, then it might not be for you. But for me, I'm biased because I was shown it every year as a kid. I know a lot about the making of the film. I know a lot about the actors. So I love the movie. But from an outside perspective, I actually have to respect that.
I think maybe if I was shown it as a kid, under different circumstances, I might feel differently about it. I didn't see it until I was a teenager for the first time. And like I said, it was just, it was a group of friends, and it was just kind of...
Are you mad because you didn't get Red Ryder BB Gunner for Christmas?
A little.
Ah, okay. There is a Christmas Story 2 sequel to the film. It came out in the 2000s. It's got a completely new cast. It's not exactly bad, or as some people would say, the worst sequel to a movie, but it had its moments. It tells the story of Ralphie essentially becoming a man by learning responsibilities like getting a job, paying for a car, and falling in love. Plus, the old man is portrayed by Daniel Stern. Who doesn't love Daniel Stern? Now, in the film, as you know from the first movie, when the old man is working on the radiators, like, gosh darn it, all the obscenities. In Home Alone, Marv does very similar obscenities, and Daniel Stern does the same thing in this film, so I thought that was a very nice nod to Home Alone, if that's what that was. I've considered it a nod. Christmas Story 2 was made for television, and then it came out on DVD and Blu-ray. It did not get a theatrical movie release, which is fine, because it would have probably bombed in the box office. In other words, I liked the film. I didn't love it. I liked it, though. Well, Christmas movies, I mean, there's a lot of classics out there, but one that me personally has definitely made the classic list is Elf. What would you say?
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, what's really cool about this film is that Will Ferrell, before he began his acting career, one of his jobs was to be a mall Santa. Did you know that?
No.
I did not know that.
Yeah. His Saturday Night Live and Night at the Roxbury co-star Chris Kattan was his elf. They were friends. So that was one of his sources of income, was to be a mall Santa. So when they cast him elf, I'm like, wow, this is kind of apropos. He's not Santa, but still, it's like the same kind of, mentality.
That makes the scene with him talking to Santa and telling him off phenomenal.
Exactly. You sit
That
on a
makes it
throne
so
of
much
lies.
better. You sit on a throne of lies. You're not the real Santa.
You don't smell like Santa. You smell like beef and cheese. A lot of great quotes in that movie. Director of Elf, Jon Favreau, had a cameo in the film as Buddy's doctor, remember? He's in the room with James Caan. He's
When he
eating
eats the cotton balls, he goes...
Right, he's like, Buddy, don't eat those. He's like,
I didn't know that.
Since he's also friends with Peter Billingsley, who portrayed Ralphie in The Christmas Story, he also has a cameo as Ming Ming the elf. Remember when Will Ferrell's in the workshop? He's like, I can't do anything right. And this little elf comes up to him and says, hey, you're not different. You're just special.
Yeah.
That was Peter Billingsley.
You're not a cotton-headed ninny muggins.
Cotton-headed Nicky Muggins, that's right, yeah.
I'm just a con-headed ninny muggins.
I mean, besides besides that cast, you got James Caan and Mary Steenburgen. And of course, good old Jersey boy Artie Lang is in it. He was great as the gimbal Santa. That's the one you were just talking about where
He's on a throne of lies.
You're not the real Santa. I love when big films like that can incorporate local actors. I think that's really brilliant because it brings that certain audience into the theater that you wouldn't think of. Next movie, The Santa Claus. Santa Claus 2 and then Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause. I don't know what it is, but I mean, all three movies are good in their own right, but the third one is my favorite. Now, I mean, I have a different opinion, of course, but for some reason, 3 seems to be a number with me. I mean, I like Back to the Future 3. I like Leprechaun 3. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure. And I like the Santa Claus 3.
3 for 3.
Let me ask.
Go ahead.
What about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3?
No.
Okay.
That, let's not even go there, bro.
I'm just making sure.
That was just terrible. That wasn't even a movie, man. I don't know what that was. That was a train wreck.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I've actually only seen the first Santa Claus movie.
Really?
Yeah. I've
Okay.
never seen the second or third one. Not that I have anything. I loved the first one, but I guess I just never really got around to the other two.
Well, it's basically the same story. They just added layers to it. Like the second one, he has to get married, and the third one is the escape clause, where Jack Frost comes into play and switches places with Santa and throws the whole.
That one was marketed really well.
It really was.
That
And
was
did you know that Tim Allen wasn't keen on that film? He didn't like it at all.
No, I remember that he was like, this has nothing to do with it. This has nothing to do with Christmas. Why does Santa have to go through these circumstances and everything? They're like,
Yeah.
oh, they're just trying to get like a little like steam out of it. And he's just like, this isn't going to sell too well. And it was I remember the marketing.
I mean, there's been quite a few Santa Claus titled movies in the past,
Yeah.
but this one is the Santa Claus with an E, because it's the clause that entitles him to be the Santa once you put on that robe, which I thought was an interesting take on the Santa Claus element. It's your basic, gotta make things right for my child while I'm going through a divorce type of story. It's been done 100 times, but this was Disney's version of it. Now, I've been a fan of Tim Allen since Home Improvement, so watching this film definitely made it funnier because he makes a reference to the show when he's put on the Santa suit. Do you remember where he's on the rooftop? Well, I hope you're happy, Comet. I hope you're happy too, because the person who lives here, he's a tailor! He's referring to Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Tim Taylor.
That was a
Never put
nice
the two
little
together.
nod towards the series, because this was right when... See, Santa Claus was in 1994. This was like at the peak of Home Improvement, so this was the perfect character for him to play. Another great actor in the film, which you don't really hear too much about, is David Krumholtz. He portrayed Bernard, Santa's right-hand elf.
Mm-hmm.
You'll probably remember him from movies such as 10 Things I Hate About You and Serenity. I've also met him twice.
Really?
Both times at my job. Here's a story. The first time I met him, I was sitting at the cafe section for lunch, and I saw him rolling his cart in my direction. I took a double take because I thought I was seeing things, but he just nodded and smiled at me. The second time I was on register, and he came through my line, and I just spoke to him like a normal customer in the store. Now, the day I found out it was him, I was at customer service, and I saw him approach one of the registers to be rung up. I called the phone at the register and asked the cashier to ask the customer if he has ever been mistaken for the actor who was Bernard in the Santa Claus. She asked him, and he said yes, because that's who he was. Later on, I spoke to the cashier, and she told me that they had a great conversation regarding acting in movies, and that even after more than 20 years since the Santa Claus was released, people still see him as Bernard. I mean,
That's crazy.
that's both a compliment and both like, oh, I can't get away from this character, you know?
He has a very recognizable face.
He really is.
Daniel Radcliffe, because he's kind of done.
Did you know that Santa Claus 3 was actually the only movie in the franchise that Bernard doesn't appear in? At the time, David Krumholtz was already involved with the TV show Numbers, so the Santa Claus 3 conflicted with his schedule and he couldn't come on as Bernard.
Oh.
Yeah. It would have been nice to see him come back, but you know what? I think Curtis filled that role really well. I don't remember his name in real life, but he's actually the brother of Abigail Breslin, the little girl in the beginning of Santa Claus 3, where she's like, come on, tell us a story about how you and Santa, met. When it comes to classics, again, it's not a classic like, It's a Wonderful Life or Miracle on 34th Street, but to parents out there who have endured the Black Friday rush and people stepping over each other, Jingle All the Way.
Yes.
I mean, what is your opinion on that film?
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. What a great pair.
You can't go wrong.
No. It was awesome. I love that movie. And it really represents, like you said, the chaos of the holiday season. And you have to get that one toy. Whatever it takes, you have to get that one toy.
I was just looking for a Turbo Man. That was like the Tickle Me Elmo. Remember when Rosie O'Donnell had her show? She was plugging that toy nonstop, and that was like the toy of the year. And I remember just seeing
People have hurt
TV.
themselves over that stuff.
They did. I remember seeing TV commercials about it, and then seeing, like, let's go to whatever name in Toys R Us Live. Sue? And then all of a sudden you see people in the background like fighting over the Tickle Me Elmo and like throwing boxes and stuff. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. And this film pretty much encapsulates that. And of course, it's a Hollywood movie. So they're going to go a little bit, they're going to stretch the truth a little bit, but it's not too far from the truth. That's what's funny about it. So I think a lot of people can relate to that. What's that?
They made it quirky, but like there was a lot more truth behind it. Their intentions and everything. They had to make it entertaining. Mm-hmm. But, like, everyone has seen those types of people.
Depending on what side of the spectrum you are, you can relate to that movie in some way, shape, or form.
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad, you can't go wrong with those two people. You got Rita Wilson, Phil Hartman, Jim Belushi, Martin Mull, Robert Conrad, and Jake Lloyd, who went on to portray Anakin Skywalker in the 1999 film Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace.
Now, Phil Hartman and Sinbad, they were in a movie together too, right? House Guest?
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. That's right. House Guest. They were.
Yeah, yes. They were a good team, too.
They were really good. And that's another actor I miss. Phil Hartman. Man. Oh, gosh.
He was funny. Really
he was funny. A lot of his bits in Saturday Night Live were just really good. And as an actor, he had amazing timing. It's a shame. A lot of these people were gone too soon.
Yes.
He's one of them I miss the most, besides Chris Farley and, John Candy. Mm-hmm. Great, great actor. Of course, it wouldn't be Christmas without mentioning National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I'm not going to go too much into this one because it will be spoken about in my holiday review special, but let's just say that this film is one that most of us can relate to. The overcrowding in the house due to relatives, the overspending of gifts, the painstaking effort of finding the perfect family Christmas tree, and of course, many Murphy's Law examples that would be too many to count even in this podcast. I know you're not a fan, again, of A Christmas Story, but are you a fan of this movie at least?
I'm a bigger fan of this movie, though I do feel this movie is another one of those rite of passages that's kind of forced on you.
Okay.
But this movie, for me anyway, I guess because of the immense comedy that it's got, it kind of makes up for that. It's like if you're kind of thrown into it because you just have to see this movie, at least you've got something to laugh at pretty much every 30 seconds.
Okay. Speaking of classics, Miracle on 34th Street from 1947. There's been the remake that came out with Mara Wilson from Matilda. Also a great movie. Not as good, but it was also done very well. It's just a great, heartwarming story about a man who appears out of nowhere, saves a Thanksgiving Day parade, and helps drive a department store holiday sales through the roof by a really weird sales tactic, sending people to shop elsewhere if they don't have the product. That's a really weird tactic because that's like, oh, wait a minute, you're driving people away from our store, but at the same time, you're also giving people transparency and letting them know, hey, we're not going to BS you. If we don't have it, we'll send you somewhere else. Makes the customer trust you more as a salesperson. That was actually pretty smart.
I don't really remember the film that well because I saw it when I was really young, but I have great memories just attached to it because it was my grandfather who showed it to me. Mm-hmm. And he's no longer here. So anything that I can watch that reminds me of him, just like you said, it's a feel-good movie. Just mm-hmm. watching that movie reminds me of the first time that I saw it and what I was feeling at that time. I might have been maybe 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
So that movie will always hold a special plate in my heart. I've never seen the remake of it.
This film has 3 of the greatest actors from this time. Maureen O'Hara, Natalie Wood, and William Frawley. A little trivia for the fans of the 40s and 50s out there. William Frawley, who portrayed Judge Harper's friend Charlie Halloran, was also a regular on the show I Love Lucy as the landlord Fred Mertz. Apparently, Vivian Vance and him didn't get along, and they fought quite often off camera. On March 3rd, 1966, William Frawley died of a heart attack while walking home from a movie. And according to a Hollywood Reporter, when Vivian Vance heard the news of his death, she shouted, "Champagne for everyone!" But William Frawley was known in Hollywood to have this reputation to be a very uneasy person to work with, on camera and off camera. So it's not surprising you would hear somebody say something like that, but that's very morbid. 2 words. Bill Murray. Now, saying this person's name out loud, a lot of movies and sketches come to mind from SNL. And Scrooged, one of the best Christmas Carol adaptations in my opinion. What would you say?
I'd agree. I haven't seen it fully, but I thought it was really fun.
Okay.
Are those puppets or animatronics that they're using? Ghost of Christmas Future? Isn't there like a puppet? Like a big looking Grim Reaper?
The Grim Reaper. Was that an animatronic or was that someone in costume? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, doesn't he like open his
what-
brain
what
and
was
these
it?
demons come out?
Yeah, what was that?
I think that was part animatronic.
Okay.
Yeah, like part human, part animatronic. Now, Home Alone 1 and 2. I mean, you got 2 of the greatest Kids Left Behind movie of all time come out and written by John Hughes. Do you know how this movie came about? By chance? John Hughes was in an airport and he saw a kid running after his family saying, hey, wait up, what are you going to do? What are you doing? Wait up. And he thought of the idea of what would it be like if a kid got left behind during the holidays? And that's where he got the idea to start writing the screenplay about Kevin McAllister being left home all alone during Christmas. But Home Alone 1 and 2 are 2 movies that you almost have to watch back to back. You can't watch one without the other. Do you have any favorite memories of Home Alone that you want to share?
My memory of seeing the first movie with my mom in theaters, she really wanted me to see it because my mom is fluent in French. And in the movie, they go to France.
They go to Paris, right?
And so that was a big part of her wanting me to see it because she always wanted me to learn how to speak French and she wanted me to be exposed to it. But the memory I have is actually going to Pizza Hut. We're eating at Pizza Hut and she keeps telling me, we're going to go see this movie. No, Mommy, I want to do something else. And then at the end of the meal, we're leaving and the dude behind the counter hands me this bat puppet from Eureka's Castle. My eyes light up and my mom said, nope. If you're not going to see the movie with me, then I'm not going to get you that bat puppet.
That's badly.
So I threw a little fit and everything, and we went to see the movie, and it was great. And she said, how'd you like the movie? And I said, I loved the movie. It was so funny. I was laughing the whole time. Then, eventually for Christmas, she ended up getting me the bat puppet and stuffing it in my stocking. But that was my memory of Home Alone. The very first time I saw it, all I could think about was that freaking bat puppet. But no, the movie is great. The sequel is just as good, if not funnier, actually.
I have a memory to share with you. This is kind of embarrassing, and only a few people know of this, but I'm going to share it. That movie had a lot of great scenes that I remember by heart, and the one that I always enjoyed the most was when Kevin went down the stairs on a sled and out the door. Mm-hmm. I attempted to do the same thing when I was a kid. However, I got to the top of the stairs, and I was using a cookie tray. So needless to say, there was no friction involved. I went right down the stairs, but the problem is that Kevin McAllister's door was right in front of the stairs and it was open. In front of me was the closet door. So I went down the stairs, boom, 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 right against the closet door. And I could hear my mother in the living room going, what was that? And I'm like, nothing. I started crying. And she comes over to me and she goes, what are you doing? I said, I was trying to do what Kevin did with the sled. She goes, why would you do that? I said, because it looked fun. But I was a kid at the time. I wasn't thinking about the door being open. I just wanted to try it.
No kid thinks about the repercussions. It looked like fun.
We're fearless.
I really like in the sequel the way that they made the part where he's walking around New York City late at night. I'm talking about the real creepy scene where he's running from the bird lady.
Hookers, and
then he's running from the bird lady in Central Park. And the part that gets me is he hails down a taxi and he thinks he's safe. And he jumps into this taxi and he goes, spooky out there. And the cab driver turns around and he looks like Toxic Avenger and he's like, ain't much better in here, kid.
That's kind of true because as a kid, if you were lost in a big city like New York, you would have those fears. So there's definitely some truth in that scene. Even as an adult, you walk down one wrong alley and God knows what's going to happen. My greatest fear as a kid was being left in the grocery store. I think what made Home Alone 2 funnier than the first one was Tim Curry.
Yes.
I mean, this guy is just timeless. I see Yasmin, she's smiling from cheek to cheek. I mean, of course, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Dr. Frankenfurter. You got...
He portrays any role.
When he was in Muppet
Even
Treasure
it.
Island.
Oh, yes.
Well, I actually watched that not too long ago with Lisanne.
You gotta watch that.
Legend.
Legend, of course, is the devil. Oh, gosh. What was
Pennywise.
Pennywise in It, of course. That was a great
laugh.
movie. That laugh, yeah. You know his laugh anywhere. And you can actually tell a lot about a person when you mention Tim Curry.
Yes, where they know Tim
and
Curry
where they know
from.
Tim Curry from.
Yes.
Yes. That made it so much better, that movie.
I think my first introduction, like knowing who Tim Curry was, where I got familiar with it, probably because of my age, but the Wild Thornberries was where
Oh my gosh, that's right.
as
Nigel.
Yeah. Just saying smashing.
Smashing.
And then when I got introduced to Clue and everything, I was just like, oh, that's Nigel Thornberry. I know who that is. But then when I got to know, wait, this is Tim Curry. And then I got into like what he was, and then obviously Rocky. And I'm just like, oh, now I know where my obsession came from before I even knew what Rocky was.
I think another good cameo in Home Alone 2 was Rob Schneider.
Oh, of course. Is the bellhop, yeah. Or he holds his hands out for like the tip, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He gives him a stick of gum.
Yeah. What's the matter? Missing your stolen credit card.
Let's see what the police have to say about this.
Yeah. Great movie.
Great movie. Now I want to watch it.
We should.
Going back to talking about Tim Allen in the Christmas movies, Santa Claus 1, 2, and 3, he was also in Christmas with the Cranks, which I thought was a brilliant concept. And the film is actually based off the novel by John Grisham titled Skipping Christmas. If only this concept can work in real life. I mean, there's been so many times over the years where, see, I've worked in retail for 17 years, and I've gotten fed up with all the pressure to shop, spend money just for the sake of pleasing people, and family arguments, that the concept of skipping Christmas altogether sounded perfect. It shows all of this as well as the retaliation for implementing such a sacrilegious idea to some people, though.
Honestly, that's something I've suggested to my family for I don't even know how many years at this point, because it's just so stressful as it is now. But I just remember even just seeing this movie with my family, just like them laughing, being really young, not really knowing. I wasn't able to understand like the chaos from it, but I understood like, oh, this is funny, this person's getting hurt, this is funny. But then I guess when I got older, I got to appreciate it more. Even though like their family members are really chaotic as it is, they also have a lot of heart.
Yeah.
Honestly, that they went out of their way so much for their daughter. Everyone likes to complain and say, oh, that the holidays are so much, but it's not so much about the gifts and everything. It's more bringing everyone together, and they went through so much. Like, their given circumstances was to make it a great holiday for their daughter, and I thought that was so touching. Though everything does go wrong, of course.
Of course.
But, like, even with, like, the casting for it, I thought it was really well done.
I mean, you got great comic relief from Dan Aykroyd, who plays Frohmeyer from across the street.
Yes.
And I'm cheesy because I love when films pay fan service. In this one, there's 2 fan service scenes where Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis are hiding behind the curtains, looking at the Frohmeyers across the street, and they're just going back and forth with their banter. Tim Allen goes, well, who's he going to call? And there's like that slight pause there, and as a fan, you're like, Ghostbusters! And then later on, when everyone's at the party, they lose power, and they go into the basement. And Tim Allen's looking at the circuit breaker with Dan Aykroyd, and he goes, do you know anybody at Con Ed? And Dan Aykroyd just smiles and shakes his head. I'm like, oh yeah,
a nod to
reference
us.
number 2. Nice.
That's a nice nod to us.
Yes, that's a great movie. So if you're a fan of Ghostbusters and you've never seen Christmas with the Cranks, do yourself a favor, go see it, because not only does it pay fan service, but it's a great concept in general. Definitely see it. Joe just pulled out his phone. He showed me this creepy picture of the Grinch.
We both pulled out photos.
What is the story with that picture, Joe?
That's me.
You portrayed the Grinch?
I did.
Oh, damn. Who did your makeup?
Janelle, I forgot her last name.
What was that for?
What's
A
her
play or
Instagram?
something? Was it for Brighton Asylum?
Yeah, it's for Brighton Asylum. We do a Christmas themed haunt every year. I don't do the Grinch anymore, but the past few years I did the Grinch. I think for 2 or 3 years I did it. It was a lot of fun.
You should tell them the story with
Did
Connor.
you get the voice down?
I kind of gave it my own spin because it was supposed to be more of a Grinch who's hopped up on a lot of medication.
Oh.
So he can get through the holiday season.
Could you give us a little sample?
Another glass of eggnog, I'll take in some jingle bells all the way, and I'll just chop your friggin' head off if I have to. Max! Back here, Max! Max! Are you finally dead?
That's pretty dark.
Yeah, I did carry around a life-size dog doll with me that I just kind of dragged on a leash. He was covered in blood. His eyeballs were popping out. It made for the aesthetic.
I would have loved to see that in person.
It was fun. I had a bunch of presents. This one year I was stationed to work this one hallway, and it just wasn't getting a lot of action. Now at this time I had already been a queue line actor, so I was used to having free roam of the outside queue. And here I am as the Grinch, kind of in a corner where I'm not really being seen, and people are exiting from one room to go to the next, and I'm supposed to catch him off guard. And it was just kind of like, there's the Grinch for a second, and then he's gone. And people were kind of stopping. They wanted to take pictures and everything, but when you're inside the haunt, you can't really do that.
You have to remain in character, right?
Yeah, you need to remain in character, and you can't let people stop to take pictures because it backs up the line, and especially while you're indoors, the lighting is set to be a certain way, so when the flash goes up, it kind of gives away a lot of breaks on the fourth wall. In the middle of the night, I just kind of said, screw this, and I grabbed a couple of prop presents, and I just left my spot, and I went onto the queue line, and I just started throwing presents at people, just,
Is this what you want? Is this what you think Christmas is all about? Well, here you go!
And I would just throw a present at him. And at one point, my supervisor came out, and he said, "Why aren't you in your spot?" And I turned around and just yelled, "F you!" And I threw a present at him. And I was kind of waiting for him to tell me to get back to my spot or to go home. And he just kind of laughed, and he said, "No, you're in character, you're fine." And he just let me do my thing. So I got to, go outside and be more interactive with people, and people were happy about that because they got to take pictures with the Grinch with this ornament, shoved into the side of my face with blood dripping down, and of course I'm dragging around this dead dog with me. So it was fun to kind of portray the Grinch in a more horrific way.
So while you're reminiscing about doing the Grinch at Brighton Asylum, it brought up another movie that I remember watching that was so over the top and ridiculous that I have to watch it at least every year now because it's funny. It's not even a horrific, it's funny, and it's called Santa's Sleigh. Have you seen it?
We actually just watched it last night.
Watched it.
Seriously?
It was.
Oh.
We were putting our costumes together for Santa's Sleigh, and we were just. I couldn't look away. It was just the strip club to just everything, just
Exploding presents.
Yes.
the presents, every line that came out of his mouth, just the fact that he had the braids going, everything.
It was a stupid Christmas pun.
I loved.
And Bill Goldberg,
I loved
of all
it.
people, portrayed him.
I loved
He
it.
did great.
He did great, absolutely.
loved it.
It's a ridiculous movie that should not exist, but I'm so glad it does because of how ridiculous it is.
I think that was a good movie for everyone who hates Christmas movies, honestly.
Okay.
For people who are like, oh, well, it's not my kind of movie. There's no action, there's no this, there's no story, there's no anything. And
yes,
it's just
there
like,
is.
I'm like, you know what? Here you go. This is for you guys.
And it's got a great soundtrack, too. There's
It's
a lot of great
phenomenal.
artists
Yeah.
on it. I'm not going to say the music is the highlight of the film. There's a lot of great scenes that Bill Goldberg just really goes over the top, but
Every
it's...
pun was on point. And he said it with a straight face.
Every line he delivers
That
is
we're
a
gonna
pun.
deck
And in the
his
beginning,
walls,
exactly, in the beginning of the movie, you had James Caan, Chris Kattan, Fran Dresser.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It's like, and then they all get killed. It's one of the worst, but one of the best death scenes in a so-called horror movie. Because it just happens so quickly in the most ridiculous ways.
For me, I was on the side of Santa, especially just for that opening scene. Just like how they set everything up with the girls praying and everything.
It's the basic Wasp family.
Yes. And I'm just like, I don't like any of these characters. It's just like, good. Now, here's some entertainment for you. Watch them all get
It's like, you know,
up.
somebody got dragged to see a Christmas movie and the person's thinking like, God, well, somebody just kill these people. Yes! Somebody finally did it!
They did it. They did it. Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly. So, anybody out there that's never seen Santa's Sleigh with Bill Goldberg portraying, excuse me, not Santa, Satan.
Yes.
Satan.
Because it's an anagram Santa. And the story's not bad, but you just have to watch it for the stupid Christmas puns and the ridiculousness of all of it. So definitely Santa's Sleigh. So the last topic I want to cover is the most overused movie cliches. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. First example, let's split up. Which in translation means let's get picked off one by one.
Or walking down a dark, quiet hallway. Hello?
Is someone
Anybody-
there?
Someone there?
It's like you just gave yourself away. Good job. You see this a lot in movie. Like, this happened a lot in, like, I think 80s and 90s movies. Get in the car, I'll explain on the way.
Yeah. And they
So-
never explain on the way.
Never.
No. It's like you have this whole car ride over to the next location, and then when that shot starts, it's like, okay, so here's the deal. You had that entire car ride to talk about it. You had the entire car ride to give exposition to the audience, but you just skipped all that, wasted our time, and like, okay, here's the deal. What did they talk about that
I
entire
just
time?
assumed that the passenger was giving him directions to get there the whole time.
No, they've been driving for 3.5 hours having carpool karaoke. That's what's going on.
I hope so.
I hope so.
I
'Cause that'll
want
be
to see that.
one awkward ride. This happens in a lot of horror films. Let's run upstairs. The villain always follows you upstairs, or the villain's already upstairs.
And why would you go to the least safe location? You're only putting yourself deeper into a confinement.
You're like, why go to higher ground?
Seriously, you
You're
want to get
trapping yourself.
Yeah, you're
You
making
are.
it worse. You're
It's like if
just
somebody
adding
starts a fire, on the first floor, you're not gonna go. So you know what? I got to go away from the fire. I'm gonna go to the second floor. See what I'm saying?
We get it.
Did you hear that? How many horror movies feature this line? I mean, everyone's already freaked out that the scary noise doesn't help the situation, so somebody's got to blurt out, "Did you hear that?" Okay. Car explodes after running into a pole or falling off a cliff. Have you guys ever gotten into an accident?
Yes.
Okay, how many times have you experienced that or seen a car explode right after impact?
Never. It looks cool.
It does look cool, and I feel bad for the person involved, but that never happens. So I'm so tired of seeing that the Michael Bay cliche, call it.
Yeah. I've seen unfortunate car crashes, but never explosions. Like,
Yeah.
bless their souls and everything. But it's never been that type of, like, artsy.
No. Unless you run into an oil tank or something, it's not going to explode like that.
No.
This one annoys the hell out of me. It happens a lot of martial arts films. Being attacked one at a time.
They just take their time. They just
Yeah.
want to...
A guy or girl's in the middle of the circle. There's like 5 or 6 people surrounding them, and then they all take turns beating the crap out of them. It's like, that doesn't work.
No, in reality, you're just going to get jumped by all of them at the same time.
Is it dog pile? Exactly.
I thought it was just them tiring out the middle person, but it's just it's just so choreographed and clean.
Well, it's like you got to get past the goons to get to boss level.
You take out the Goombas, and then you get to Bowser.
Yes.
Right.
It's just like, so what did you learn from the first level?
Yeah.
You found that weakness. Great.
Take out the foot soldiers. Okay, now we got Rocksteady and Bebop.
Yeah.
Now we get the Shredder.
Yes.
Okay, the Eiffel Tower.
Yep.
If a movie takes place in Paris, practically every window will have a view of the Eiffel Tower. Even windows in the opposite side of the room will feature the Eiffel Tower, because if anything drives home a movie like Paris, they gotta show the Eiffel Tower.
Just so
Well,
you don't forget.
You need to remember that you're in Paris.
You have to remember you're in Paris. 'Cause
This only
what better
happens
way?
in Paris. Remember.
especially the movie Paris When It Sizzles. I would have never figured that out from the title.
They
Or
have
an
to do
American in
that Golden
Paris,
Gate.
you know.
They do that with the Golden Gate Bridge. They did it with the Twin Towers.
Especially in
There's
Madeline. Almost every shot in Madeline from the 90s featured the Eiffel Tower. I'm like, come on. That's a huge...
They make it look like everything's just in the area.
Yeah.
Paris must be a really small city.
It must really be, yeah. Being a big fan of the James Bond series, this one gets on my nerves. The villain explains the master plan. The villain has the hero completely at their mercy, but instead of killing them, they go into this long explanation of their plans, their motivations, and how superior they are to the hero. All this always gives the hero time to come up with a way to escape. I mean, come on, how many James Bond films are they going to make until the villain learns this?
I like the pit of sharks that they always put. It's always fun.
How about when something gets thrown, out of view and you always hear the cat?
Yeah. Like, I don't need this anymore. I threw out the window.
It's like the cat shrieking.
The car won't start. Again, another one with horror movies. Somebody's being chased by an axe murderer or somebody with a knife, and they get into the car and they start it, and come on, it's not working. Come on, they're getting closer and closer. It's like, oh, seriously?
But the car does eventually start.
Oh, the car does eventually start, but by that time
Lucky
the villain
them.
is right there in the window.
Yeah.
So convenient.
The killer critic who always says everyone is going to die but ends up dying first. Like in some of the Friday the 13th movies, there's always this creepy guy who goes, that boy drowned out there, and he's coming for you. You're all dead. And then he ends up getting the axe first.
What a twist.
What a twist! Exactly.
Maybe if you didn't give away a secret, you would have been fine.
Exactly.
I feel like that's just part of the equations for these movies. That once you break that fourth wall, it's just like, well, now you've ruined it for us. We're offing you.
Mm-hmm. The family member who is a scumbag through the whole movie and then gets one pep talk and decides they want to be good for now. Come on!
Sounds like every Christmas movie.
Like every Christmas music. I'm sorry, I was such a humbug. I was such a Scrooge. I want to be good now. That doesn't work in real life. No way.
And then everyone's so nice and accepting over that, even though this person could have either killed someone or just ruined someone's life in some way.
I lost my job because of you.
But it's okay, because you've learned. You've learned. What a great lesson. It's okay. We're
Exactly.
okay.
I'll never do that again, sure. The phones are down.
Of course.
Cell phones will never work in movies when you need them to. If the character's car breaks down in the middle of a town full of zombies and they want to call for help, you can be certain that there'll be no signal. Ever. That always happens. Let me see your cell phone, man. Oh, I left it. Let me see your cell phone, man. I got no signal.
Always. Or my phone's dead.
Or my phone
at the
is
most
dead.
Convenient time when I need it most.
Mm-hmm.
But that happens in real life a lot.
Okay, hacking into the government is easy.
For every nerd.
For every nerd. Anyone can hack into the government's most closely guarded secrets. All you need is a small laptop, a few keystrokes, and you can hack into the government's most secure computers and pull out all their top secrets. It usually involves the actor saying, I'm almost in, I just have to bypass the firewall.
Always. All right, I'm in.
All right, I'm in. Go ahead, you're clear. I blocked the cameras. You're invisible now. Cryptic last words. This usually happens in like Seven or Lifetime movies or something to that extent. Dying people will always give a very cryptic warning as their last words. When the hero or heroine find a dying person, they'll mutter something obscure like, beware of the girl in yellow, instead of saying, by the way, John is the killer. Oh, thank you very much for saving me the trouble. It's like, seriously, the girl in yellow? Can it be more of a Can you give me a little bit more to go on? You're about to die.
Could it be Madeline? Could it be Coraline? You don't know.
Wasn't there something like that in Men in Black? Wasn't there like a little...
Oh yeah, Orion's belt.
Yes!
The little aliens.
The aliens.
Yeah.
Belt.
That is it.
I love that.
What is word?
What's his word?
The quiet person is a strong badass hero at the end.
It's always the quiet one.
It's always the quiet
But they're
one.
able to take in everything that's going on. They're able to figure everything out, and they know not to break the rules.
That's true.
Because
Yeah,
they're learning from everyone's scenarios. It's like, well, this person won't shut up. Obviously, that's going to get you caught.
Yeah.
And it's always either, like, the quiet and, like, stereotypical weakest person. But it's usually the person taking in all the information and honestly using survival tactics unlike everyone else.
Essentially, they're just kind of keeping quiet and analyzing and observing everyone else screwing up.
Isn't
They're
that life, though?
Now I know what not to do.
That's kind of what life is. The journey of life, being around people.
Just watching everyone else destroy their lives.
And you're just kind of like, oh, okay.
And here's the basic one for almost all teenager movies. The reject girl becomes the popular one that every guy wants to be with.
Always.
Yeah.
You change your hairstyle, you take off the glasses, you put a nice dress, and all of a sudden they're attractive. Come on. How many times are they going to make that movie?
At least another billion.
And it has to be in slow-mo.
Oh,
Everyone sees her. It has to be slow-mo. They even did it with Velma. And that was really weird for me. But you know what? It happened.
All right. And last but not least, the 555 number. Every phone number in every film and TV show that I've seen has always started with 555. Sometimes they'll try to throw us off by using corresponding letters instead of the numbers, but we know better.
I tried calling.
Yeah, try calling that.
That reminds me of my weird number I had for like a week that I had to change. It was 551 1234. Like I told people, I was like, oh, my number got changed. This is my number. And everyone was just like, no.
I just want to thank you two so much for coming on this podcast. We've had a lot of time to talk about, Rocky Horror Picture Show, the theater, Joe with Disney World. That is still fascinating to find out about how the Tower of Terror works and how you tortured your three friends.
Oh man, and there's still so much that I'm not remembering that if I could really jog my memory, I could tell you some really crazy stories.
It's been a pleasure having you guys here. I definitely want you back on in the future. If you want to come back, that'd be great.
Would love to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you like this podcast, please click on the subscribe button below, give it a like, give it a share, turn on those notifications so you can stay up to date with all new news, videos, updates, podcasts, etc. You can also follow me on Instagram at NJMovieFreak. I really appreciate everyone for listening or watching this podcast, and if you have any comments, questions, or podcast requests, please post them in the comments section below, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.